I'm just getting my headphone adjusted here. Just making sure that everything is working on this side. I, for some reason, can't hear you, Julie, for whatever reason, but I know that you can hear me. So if someone could just type in, let me know if you can hear Julie okay. I'm just trying to figure out if it's if I got to throw my headset off, but just making sure that everything. So they said they can't hear you, Julie. So I think it is on your side, actually. So they said they can't hear you. I'm just checking with my team to make sure that they can hear me. But just making sure here. So I think everyone can hear. Yep, so they can hear me. They can't hear you. So I thought it was on my side, but I think your little introduction, people were not able to hear you just yet. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking while Julie troubleshoots her audio over there. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this. So this is going to be our kind of giving thanks, our gratitude episode, our just talking about all the great things that we've been hearing, that we've been seeing, that a lot of you that are listening on a regular basis have been doing. So I know Julie's got some great examples. I've got some great examples as well of just all the really cool things that we've seen. We thought it would be a good thing to do right before Thanksgiving, just as our way to just say we're grateful, we're thankful for all of you that are being here, but it's also really good to just hear positive things, to hear all the things that are working, all the things that are moving in the right direction, rather than all the things that are potentially not working as well. So I'm going to do a little comment on here, and just I would love to hear some wins. So share some wins with me. So I'm just going to type, share some wins, share some positive news. Some positive news. So I'm going to pull up this. Let's see. We got Julie back. For some reason, Julie, we still can't hear you. If you look on, there's a little setting that cam and mic, and you might just have to, if you click on audio, there's a little thing that allows you to, if you look at the mic, it should be showing green. So under my side, it says cam and mic, and then audio, it'll say mic, and then there's a little, mine shows that it is pulling from the audio there. Let me add you back to the stream. I'm not sure we've done like 30 of these and we've never had audio issues. So do you want me to remove you from the stream for the short term? For some reason, I still can't seem to hear you. You can use the little private chat to me also, if I can kind of help troubleshoot a little bit as well. I'm going to just remove you from the stream for the short term while you're trying to nail that down. All right. And I'm just checking. Just want to make sure that everyone can still hear me. But again, we want to hear some wins. We want to hear some positive news, some positive stories about anything that we've been talking about having over the last couple of weeks, the last month or two. So clicking having issues, no go. Right, hang with us for a second, everyone. So I'm just talking to Julie. She's in the dressing room, the green room. We're trying to figure out why she's having some audio challenges. So let's see. I think we can hear you now. I can hear you
now.
We can indeed. There we go. There we go.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a great introduction for this show too. So we missed it.
Yeah, and I thought it was on my side. So I was pinging my team. I'm like, can you not hear me? Is it Julie? So we'll kind of start over a little bit there. But I was just sharing with our listeners that we wanted to just share some stuff that we're thankful for. Share some gratitude stuff. Share some wins that I know there's obviously lots of craziness going on in the universe, but I want to keep today on what are some of the wins and some of the positive things that have been happening.
Yeah. And there's a lot that's positive. And, and the one thing that I like about what we're talking about today's topic, gratitude, is that it's the one thing that I've seen transform workplace cultures quicker than anything when implemented right. And I think also can transform your marketing efforts also with gratitude. And we could talk about some of those strategies if we have time to intertwine some of those. But gratitude is one thing that has changed my life starting, I think, well, I don't know. It started for me very early with really tapping into gratitude. But even after my husband passed away, I was working with a mentor back in 2012. And, one of his big questions to me was, how can you take responsibility? How can you be grateful? I'm like, oh, crap. How am I supposed to be grateful, when somebody just dies like this, But I found my way through it by being grateful. So gratitude, has played a big part in my life with everything that I've accomplished and everything I continue to do.
And I've downplayed the last couple of years the power of gratitude. And I've been hearing for years and years. So like you, Julia, I've gone to lots of personal development seminars and books and people like Les Brown, who I know you love. And I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. So I've been to all of his stuff. And in my first digital agency that I had before I started working with childcare centers, I had the privilege of working with speakers and authors. And they all had to send their content, ship their content to me. So that was kind of built into my contract, was like, basically, give me all of your stuff for free.
Yeah.
And it was not necessarily self-serving. It was, in order for me to promote you, I need to know kind of what you stand for. So I kept hearing from a lot of my clients at the time that they practice the art of gratitude. And I'm like, okay. And I've done it here and there over the last couple of years, but I haven't actually really started doing it until we had one of our sessions a few months ago, and you talked about the gratitude journal, and I bought that exact journal that you showed, and I've been doing it every morning. And it just, even when your days are challenging and maybe everything, you wake up and you're maybe in a little bit of a mood or something like that, you're like, gosh, but when you start your day with gratitude, as Julie said, amazing things really just do start to happen, and they start to manifest, and your energy shifts. And again, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life, or as Julie mentioned, she lost her husband. She's still finding things and ways to be grateful even through adversity.
Oh, yeah, totally. And for me, the journey started way back when I was going through a divorce, and it was an abusive relationship. And I really started getting into all of these success stories of these people who've accomplished these crazy things in spite of these horrific situations that they went through. And in my studies, I really discovered that they all practice the art of gratitude, thinking about what is it that I could be thankful for today. And I started thinking about Viktor Frankl, who survived life in the Nazi death camps while other prisoners were committing suicide. And he revealed the secret in the book called In Man's Search for Meaning, that the secret for the prisoners who made it beyond present circumstances and made it to freedom were the ones who would give gratitude and give thanks for everything that they had every single day. And he said sometimes, they didn't get fed for a long time. And sometimes the food would be a piece of bread plopped in some water that they called soup. And he said when they learned to really be grateful for every little thing, it gave them the will and the desire to make it beyond the present circumstance. And I want everybody to think about how many times you're in this situation, even with your team, where it's like, we just need to make it beyond a COVID situation. We need to make it beyond this. If you could start practicing and honing in on the skill of gratitude, imagine the dynamic and how much stronger you'll come out on the other side. And it not just changes lives professionally, or personally, but it changes lives professionally as well. So it really overlaps into both areas of your life. So I studied and it is the stories I would read, story after story after story. I'm like, wow. And they practiced gratitude and they came out on the other side of this and it was okay. But through everything that I've been through, I started doing that. I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. And when you are able to switch your thought process, a whole world of opportunities that you couldn't even see previously open up for you.
Definitely. So when I take a step back and look at just over the last even month or two, and a few of you have already shared some things so I asked our listeners to share some wins, some positive things, and we have a couple of things that I've already seen here. I'll share a few kind of marketing wins, some not even just marketing wins, but just going to kind of go through a list of some things that I kind of prepared for this call. I'd love you to share some wins that your clients and just things that you're seeing around you. And we just wanted to spray you with gratitude and positivity and just some really good stuff to walk into the U.S. holiday of Thanksgiving, which is always a time when a lot of people really do start to reflect a little bit. And I wish it didn't take holidays to be able to practice gratitude and be thankful. And
holidays and funerals.
Yeah, and that's very true. I started my day with gratitude today. Nice. And started listing out a variety of things. And some of the things I for some reason I tend to start big and then work my way down. So I'm like, I'm grateful for my new dog, and I'm grateful for a beautiful house, and okay, great. So all these, I'm grateful for all the fancies. So okay, well, these are all material things. And then you really, as I start to kind of dig deeper and kind of peel back the layers of the onions, I'm happy and grateful that I'm healthy. My family is healthy. For example, I'm happy that I can afford to put food on the table, that we have a warm house because it was snowing in Buffalo very, very lightly last night. And you start to really kind of peel back those layers. But it was interesting because my kids, all of my kids, minus my youngest, who's 3, attend school. And in Buffalo, Western New York area, we're 100% remote currently. Yeah. So we made that decision, but then effective 2 days ago, they decided to, move to orange level alert or whatever, which means schools get shut down. Yeah. And supposedly today they'll find out if it's red, but or they get shut down, but you go back to remote. But I was listening to, they kind of have the equivalent of a homeroom teacher. And the school they go to is called Heim, and they call it Heim time. And it was interesting because the teacher was talking all about gratitude, and it really was interesting to kind of hear some of the things that the kids were saying, and just realizing kind of how grateful kind of people were for different things. And I know, again, a lot of it has been a little bit of a challenge this year, but I'd love to hear some wins from you, Julie, and your team. Even wins at your company, wins across the clients that you've worked with, and then I'll kind of share some fun wins as well.
Yeah, and I really encourage everybody who's listening, if there's a situation that you're going through and you're like, how can I possibly find gratitude in that situation? Write it in the comments, or even send me a private message, because what we want to do is help you flip your perspective on that so that you're operating from a whole different mindset. And that's what we're doing for our clients all the time, because we know that if we're operating in one mode, like let's say we have somebody who quits our organization and we're like, oh man, and there's a shortage in this industry and there's so much lack, and where we're going to find people, the candidate pool is really dry. We're not going to see what's there for us. But when we're able to say, man, I look forward and I'm so grateful for all the wonderful people who I do attract. So a lot of the wins that, and you can let me know if I'm on the right track here with your question, Michael, is, really being able to transform the situation that we're going through with using gratitude. And it's always a part of the work that we're doing. But we have people, let's start at the very basic level of attracting staff, people who can attract staff to them. And then we flip it around and really look at, are we grateful for the staff that we have in place? Are we grateful for the clients for the candidates that we are able to attract? Because a lot of times we're like, Julie, I rewrote that ad and I only got 7 responses. I'm like, you mean you got 7 responses? They're like, well, but I expected 20 or 30 or 40. I'm like, yes, but you got to start with where you're at and be grateful for that. And then you're going to get more. So a lot of our wins that I'm really grateful for seeing with my clients is the ability. We had one client who was going to a multi-site location and she wasn't getting anybody to respond to ads. We reworked the process. She got 49 applicants in one weekend. We also had somebody else who had a real challenge attracting somebody. They got 9 applicants in a weekend. So that was really, those were really exciting to me. We also have people who are transforming their workplace culture with gratitude. And there's a specific process that we have in place where we actually incorporate and embed gratitude and positivity as part of the school culture. And when we do that, we start seeing a transformation in attitudes. We start seeing a decrease in absenteeism and tardiness. We start seeing an abolishment of workplace gossip. So these are all the things that I'm grateful for, is programs that can exist without workplace gossip. I'm grateful because even in the childcare industry, people can attract an abundance of clients. I'm grateful for, all the wins that I hear from our clients and just how their environment is transforming to positive. So there's a lot, man. I could stare and go through a list for for the whole show. But is that hitting on some of what?
No, it definitely is. I mean, I wanted to, rather than us just kind of teaching the whole time, I thought it would be good for people just to be able to kind of listen to and hear all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Not that we talk about bad stuff ever, but we're all often talking about kind of problems and challenges and how to solve them. Okay, we need more enrollments. Okay, here's what you do and here's what we're seeing. But a variety of things. So I'm just going to pull my little list up here. So
and I just want to add this too while you're pulling your list up, is even if there's a negative situation, I went through my husband passing away, I went through an abusive relationship, find the really tough situations and figure out, how do you celebrate it? How do you find something to be grateful for in that process? So right now in our Childcare Business Success Group, we're talking a lot about workplace gossip. And as I'm sitting here having the conversation with Michael, I'm thinking, it's really something to be thankful for. I think I'm going to write a post on this, but it's something to be thankful for because it is a sign that there are other things going on in your workplace that need to be changed. So it's giving you a clue that, hey, there's something bigger here that we really need to tune into. So be grateful for the things positive and negative that are happening and unfolding, because you're learning and you're growing, and it's going to make what's on the other end even so much better.
No, I mean, that's a great point. And I had a conversation with the center yesterday, and we were talking about enrollment goals and numbers and things like that. And I tend to always like to start my calls with what's working. And it's, I wouldn't say crazy, because it unfortunately is kind of a cultural norm where you overshadow the things that are not working, or excuse me, the things that are working, you just go right to what's broken. So I started the call with some positive news. Okay, great. 32 leads. Based on the data that I'm seeing, it looks like you've done 14 tours and you've enrolled 6 in the month of November. And at 6 times $1,000 or so a month for their tuition, like, so $6,000 a month, like, boom, like your marketing investment's already covered by a factor of 3.
Absolutely.
Like, the crazy thing was that they said the same thing that you had told me of, well, I wanted 15 or 20. And first, it kind of caught me off of my tracks, because then I'm like, geez, they're just not grateful for anything. But we started kind of talking through that, and it really is a psychology thing. And I have caught myself doing the same thing. Like, we added a couple of centers that we're working with this month. We missed our goal. And I found that I found myself talking about, well, geez, we missed our goal. And then I caught myself and said, actually, when you really look at it, we should be grateful that we added any centers with everything going on, and that we're able to attract new business. And
yes.
You got to make sure that you have that mindset. And that's obviously a really good step one, as Julie has said many times, that you got to be able to turn that negative situation around, for sure.
Yeah. And in my journey, one of the key areas of studies was prosperity for me. And I was always thinking about, like, wow, why do so many people have money? And I seem to, like, not have the money that I want. Even as I went into business for myself so many years ago, And I started studying prosperity, and every single teacher that I listened to was talking about being grateful for what you have to be able to get more of what you have. And one story that came to my mind was Jack Canfielder came in front of me. And he said that when he was building his prosperity, and Jack Canfield is one of the co-authors of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And he said that when he was building his prosperity, he learned that every time he found a penny, every time he found a nickel, every time he found something that was an indication that more of what he wanted was on the way, he would stop and he would say, woo, I am so grateful and thankful that I found this penny. And he would pick it up and like put it in a prosperity jar, which I later practiced for many years. But he would pick it up and he says, don't discount the pennies, because it's a sign that more of what you want is on the way. So whether it's one job applicant or one enrollment, whatever it is, you got to go, woo, I'm so excited, because this means that there is more. Hey, you're muted.
Gosh, I think it's a hint to take some more coffee.
I think you were playing with us because they couldn't hear me earlier.
No, that's completely spot on.
Yeah.
Completely spot on. So a few kind of pieces of good news, a few wins that I wanted to just share. So I'm going to leave the names of the centers out just because some of the stuff is confidential. So one of the centers that we're working with has been wanting to grow their impact, and by way of more locations, more kids they want to work with. And they recently had a word that they're going to be acquiring a multi-center location pretty rapidly.
Nice. Wow.
Where they could close to double their footprint in the next couple of months. And it's rather than coming from that place of kind of fear, they came from a place of abundance. Nice. And kind of put it out there, and they just started looking at and seeing who they could attract into their life, and have kind of moved forward with that. So I've got a couple of those stories. A lot of centers that we're working with have been shooting us messages saying, can you take a look at this center and just see, can their marketing be improved? What are they doing? So why do you want to look at this? Is it a competitor? No, we want to buy them. So I can probably give you 10 or 15 centers that I know of that literally over the next 30, 60, 90 days will be closing on centers and bring those centers into their universe. We've got many centers, one center added. I'm just looking at the numbers here. Single center location, they're one enrollment away from being full. 60 days ago, they needed 26 enrollments to be full. So we've helped them drive 25 enrollments in 2 months.
Ooh, nice, love it.
So they're essentially going to hit and will be at capacity. Another center, they hired 2 new directors. Based off of some of the feedback that we gave them after listening to phone calls and things like that. Right. So they moved their people around, and they found that 2 of the directors they had were better suited as teachers rather than as directors. And they now said that the numbers they're seeing are some of the best that they've had.
Yes, awesome.
So a lot with, almost every center that we're working with, they're driving enrollments right now. And I'm not going to say that it's only because they're thinking from an abundance standpoint, but they are combining it with their vision, combining that with the actions. Mm-hmm. So they're taking inspired actions each and every day. They're taking actions that they know if they've got that overarching vision of they want to grow, they want to add more centers, they want to attract somebody different to kind of lead their center from a director standpoint. They're moving the needle, and I have a lot more positive news and testimonials than I do of people that are struggling. Quite frankly, even though they're saying that COVID is returning and et cetera, it's not that I'm not seeing it in the centers, but I think what we are seeing is the families that have chosen not to enroll their kids. They're staying home. They're not going to enroll their kids this year. But the families that are looking to make some changes, they've also seen the news, and they've seen how the centers, like all of you that are listening, have pivoted to make sure that you're providing a safe environment and a clean environment. And they've probably read some of the data that shows that childcare centers are among the safest places for their kids. Yeah. So almost every center that we're working with, if not every center, they're adding enrollments. I mean, it's going to be a wonderful and prosperous December. And I really believe through my heart of hearts that January is going to be a record month for centers from what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I mean, we have clients who are childcare owners, they're fully enrolled. And some of the other things that I'm really grateful for is really helping some of our owners be able to navigate through some really tough situations. So we had one owner who was really fearful that she wasn't going to be able to make payroll at the end of the week. And this has happened several times where it's like, Julie, there's not enough money there. There's not enough money there. There's not enough money there. And we shift our mindset, we put a strategic plan of action into place. And one of our owners was able to bring in $15,000 in a matter of 3 hours from the time we got on the phone and coached. So that situation I'm always grateful for, because I'm like, wow, what proof that the universe is such an amazing and powerful place. But then to put a plan of action into place, and the owner started feeling sick and she's like, Julie, I can't do this. I'm like, do it, and do it now, do it fast. And she did. And it was a few hours later and she's like, oh my goodness, Julie, over $15,000. And we had another owner who implemented the same strategy that we were talking about. And she was struggling getting some money together for taxes. And she was able to, within a week, generate over $60,000. So I love teaching prosperity, and I love teaching the mindset as much as I do the staff motivation piece of things. But to me, it's very holistic. A lot of things go hand in hand. We can't treat one thing without treating the whole thing, because if there's not enough money coming in, you're not paying your staff, there's going to be a dynamic and a downfall there. So if we could really look at the problem to make sure that you've got all these crazy things that are waking you up in sweat, at 2 a.m, taken care of first. We could celebrate those things, and then we can move on to some of the bigger pieces.
I like it.
Or smaller pieces, that it depends on your perception.
Is there a book or two that you would recommend? I know we talked about the gratitude journal, and I know you've referenced a lot of books, but I work with a lot of centers that it's not that they don't believe in the power of mindset and the law of attraction and things like that, but it's probably farther down their list of why they would be growing.
Yeah.
And they just want to jump right into the tactics and just start driving me enrollments. But then what ends up happening, not all the time, but a lot of times, again, is if their mindset in going into things is this isn't going to work. Like almost every call that I'm taking lately is, Michael, we have always had a wait list, and with COVID, now we don't. And I've never had to do marketing. Don't even know if it's going to work. What does it cost? So that's almost every call that I'm taking. And we usually will dive in and we start driving leads and things like that. But depending on the center, depending on the owner, the atmosphere, the culture, et cetera, I do think that, trying to think the way to phrase this, that I guess if they were to do a little bit of work internally that you're suggesting, that they could be in a better place to receive what's coming, but also just to be able to start to change, I guess, their mindset of what's to come. So is there maybe a book or two that you would recommend to our listeners to grab over the Thanksgiving holiday to read?
Well, it depends where you're at. It really depends on where you're at with your mindset development and your mindset growth. But one of the books that became my Bible, and I still have it here right next to me, it's called The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. And it's a big, thick, old book. But I started also reading a lot of Ogmandino? And Zig Ziglar and Norman Vincent Peale, who talked a lot about mindset and a lot about prosperity. And there's one really powerful book that I think every entrepreneur should read, and that is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in that book, he talks about how during the Depression, there were people, their businesses were collapsing. But then there was a whole other group of people who were creating these $1 million, which was a lot during that time, these $1 million or multi-million-dollar businesses. And in the book, he really talks about the secrets in terms of, well, why is it on one hand, businesses are collapsing, and then on the other hand, these other businesses are really growing and thriving. And it all comes back to your mindset. So whether you want to believe it or not, it's there, and it's a force to be reckoned with. And I think that we should do a whole show just on mindset and attracting, because we, as much as I'd love to convert you into believing like, yes, I attract, we're always attracting things to us, whether it's conscious or not conscious, but our thoughts do attract things. And one of the movies that I saw early on was The Secret, and there's some pieces to me that were missing from that, but it is a good initial study about attraction. And that's the movie. But I would really recommend everybody Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Got it. And then what was the book that that you have referenced that is about like the Nazi concentration camps?
Oh, and Man's Search for Meaning.
I think that would be another great book for people to. I think that's actually going to be the one that I'm going to grab for this Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, I don't
it's
even
not
know.
It's light reading though. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if it's a good one to read over the Thanksgiving holiday, but maybe it is because it's all about gratitude being grateful for. When you're in those situations, it's definitely gives you perspective.
Yeah, and another one that I used to teach on a lot too. When I first started motivational speaking, after I left my corporate job, I was hired to come into a facility where there were recovering drug addicts and alcoholics, and it was all men. And it was men straight off of alcohol, straight off of booze. And they're like, we want to give them a motivational experience and have our group ratings be better than ever. And I'm like, oh crap, what am I in for? And I'm in this, this smelly kind of building with all these guys and the counselors. And I remember picking up a book that I thought just totally transformed my life. And it was called The God Memorandum by Og Mandino. And there is a spiritual reference. So it is about God and the blessings. But it is transformational. And Og's intention with that book was that you should read it every single day. It's like 10, 15 minutes for 30 days. And by the end of that 30-day period, your confidence is going to be jacked up because you're just filling your mind with all of these positive thoughts and all of these things that you are grateful for. And in the book, I always quote when I'm on stage that you are not a tree condemned to a small plot while the wind and world abuses you. You can run and stretch and dance and work and play. And basically, you can create the reality that you're living in. And that always, always, always stood out in my mind as such a powerful statement from the book. But it's another great one. And if you can't find the God Memorandum in and of itself, the God Memorandum is a back section in a book called The Greatest Miracle in the World, which is a fictional story by Og Mandino. And then in the back of it, he put the God Memorandum. But it's also available separately.
What was that one called? I'm sorry, the last one you said?
The Greatest Miracle in the World.
Got it.
So he tells a fictitious story and then ties it in with gratitude. And that at the end, it's the God Memorandum, which is a message to you from God. And even if you're not spiritual and you don't want to say God, you want to say the universe, your creator, whatever it might be, you could interject that instead. But to me, it was like, yeah, wow. It just really forced me to see you have eyes and you could open your eyes, and you have hands and you could work with your hands, and to really look at everything that I have in my life and be incredibly grateful for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
There was a movie that came out. I don't know if you've heard of it or seen it, but it was with Katie Holmes.
Yeah.
Called The Secret, Dare to Dream. And
Yes.
that was, I wouldn't say that it was all about the law of attraction, but it definitely it was a good story. I won't spoil it for anyone, but I think that's another good movie to kind of watch.
Yeah.
I think The Secret, scared a lot of people away, in my opinion, just based on
the nature of it.
And just some of the languaging that was used, and just some of the people that were speaking. But that's just my opinion. Not backed by facts by any means, but I think you'll like the Katie Holmes movie if you haven't seen it. But
I did see that one not too long ago.
Yeah, you've got to be, as Julie and I have said, and more so Julie than myself, and you've got to be a steward of prosperity and abundance and practicing gratitude regardless of the circumstances that you're going through.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we wanted to just share some joy and some love and some good news today, because there's always something to be grateful for, and there's always something that you can be happy for. One of the I'll share a personal story real quickly, but one of the things that I have been looking at for the last couple of months, and it's a little bit of an oxymoron, but I've been looking at trying to, I guess, quote unquote, find my why.
Mm.
And there's a really good video that Simon Sinek did on a good TED talk. Kind of people buy why you do what you do; they don't buy what you do.
Right.
And that makes sense. So okay, great. We're a digital agency, and I mean this is kind of what we do, and that's kind of where you default to. But they buy why you do it, and I've been looking at trying to nail down my personal why. And I've just been struggling. And I've often said, well, my personal why is just, to do it for my family and for my kids so that I can be at home more. Being an entrepreneur, you can kind of make your own schedule, which can be a blessing and a curse in disguise, because your brain is always on. But if you enjoy what you're doing, as people will say, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
So I kind of went through a lot of those things. And it was interesting because I said this to two of my team members. And I probably shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it wasn't the gossip piece, but it was just some, I said in passing, like, I've been trying to find my why. And one of the team members that runs our operations kind of took that to heart. And she had everyone that works for us and for me go through and do a short little video on basically saying thank you. And like, thank you for giving me X, for allowing me to do X. And they ranged from things to being able to work from home, to being able to learn and grow. Like, it just, I teared up for the whole video, was very, very emotional. And I realized that my why, and the video started by the person that I was saying, hey, I'm trying to find my why. She's like, well, I think your why is closer than you think. And I always thought it was more for kind of my family, but I think it's more for my extended family of the people that I work with, that being able to provide jobs, because then those jobs provide for others. And it just really my mindset completely changed. I went from being in a little bit of not a rut, but just a little bit negative around, I got to find my why. And those things, they just they can change the circumstance around very, very rapidly.
Yeah. And I think what you're going through and trying to find your why is the same thing a lot of our owners go through and trying to find theirs, or to remember what it was. And I remember after my husband passed in 2012, and I shared this with my mentorship members, and it's also in the Child Care Business Success book, is I stood there in this 1904 farmhouse that I had bought because he wanted me to buy that house. And I just stood there alone thinking, like, how did I get here? And why am I in this house? And what is it that I really want? And who is Julie? And, I realized that it was the opportunity to redefine myself. But a lot of us feel lost in that place of, I'm standing here and I've done everything for everybody else, and I continue to do everything for everybody else. But what would happen if everybody else was not in the picture and it was you? Would you be doing the things that are making your soul happy, setting your heart on fire? And that's really what I encourage people to think about, although it's not a good thought to think about, well, I don't want to think about my life without that person or without this. But if you were, I always say, stripped down, naked, standing there alone and just in the center of a room somewhere, what would you add back? What would you add back into your life? What makes you whole? What makes you complete for you? Not because everybody else, but for you. And those are the things that really make you attractive as a person and make you a source of attraction for the other things that you want, is when you're living from that place where what you have in your life is authentically and genuinely how you want to be.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share just a couple of quick comments that we had in terms of some wins and some positivity, and then maybe we'll end with some kind of really good positive quote, and maybe one more win from your side and my side. But we've got a couple of wins on here. So
let's hear.
Samantha, she wrote, she's from Katy, Texas. Hi, Samantha.
Hey, Samantha.
She wrote that I took the content that you guys did a month or so ago, rewrote my job listings because I realized as you were auditing others, they sounded exactly like those. That's interesting. I like it.
I love it.
and we have now hired 3 new team members. So thank you for that. So love hearing those. So happy to hear that you've hired some new team members from Julie and I critiquing really crappy job ads. So very happy to hear that.
Yes, and I'm grateful that you shared that. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. Let's see here. Just reading a couple of these. Some of these are lengthy. Mark, his was 11 new enrollments in the last month and a half. Awesome, Mark. Love to hear that.
Awesome. Congratulations.
This one doesn't have a name. It just says buying one more center that is close to us, expanding our footprint.
Nice.
Very cool. Happy to hear that. Then I've got one more. Was able to do a celebration party for my staff. We have not done one all year due to budgets, but was able to do a nice Thanksgiving feast for them.
Awesome.
That one out of all of them is probably my favorite. I'm just happy.
You're hungry?
Well, that too. So we're hosting Thanksgiving tomorrow. So with a small crowd, we'll say under 10 people.
Us too.
No, those are some really great wins and some really great positive things to hear.
Yeah.
When I look back, I mean, I think my biggest win, either personally or professionally, has been just to be able to contribute to all of you. And I love, and I know Julie loves it day in and day out. I mean, you all are difference makers. I mean, you're making a difference. You're making a positive impact in the lives of children each and every single day. And as Julie's clothing line will attest, I mean, you're always an essential worker. You're always, I mean, teachers are essential, directors, owners, you're all essential. And it's so important, so vastly important. So I am blessed, I'm privileged to get to do what I do every day. And that's to simply help you expand your footprint so that you can change more lives and have more centers and more prosperity for you and your family. But really, almost everyone that I've talked to over the years, and I always ask the question, so why do you do what you do? In different way. I mean, how did you get into childcare? Right. And even for the people that I know that it's more of an investment opportunity, they'll still have some kind of connection. I just love kids. I just wanted to help. I wanted to be around, I mean, younger kids to kind of keep my energy younger, just to be able to continue to just help them and so on. I mean, it always ties back to being able to kind of mold young minds. So I'm just grateful that I've been able to help in some small way in this niche, this universe, and working with centers like you. So I'm, again, beyond grateful. I'm grateful for everyone that listens to these shows every single week and contributes feedback and ideas and shares them and likes them and all that good stuff so that we can further help. So so from my family to all of yours, definitely very grateful. So there's my little pitch and spiel for today.
That was so nice. Yeah. And, I'm so grateful too. I'm so grateful that you and I collaborated to do this show when COVID first started. I think it was one of the pivots we made was like, hey, let's partner together and let's do this show. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for the relationship that we have so that we can serve and find new ways of serving together. And I'm grateful for everybody who feels connected with us so that you could come forward and share your successes with us, or you can reach out to us with a question. I'm so incredibly grateful because to me, it becomes a lonely place when I don't have questions to answer or when I don't have an audience to speak to. That's a big part of who I am is having the people who I can serve through my speaking, through my writing, through the formats that are created. So I'm really grateful for all of you who are tuning in and sharing this as well. And I'm grateful also in what I heard from some of you is taking to heart the strategies that we're sharing and having faith and confidence in us that, this is going to work and I am going to try this. And there are so many different ways that you can incorporate into your gratitude, into your workplace culture, that you could experience a transformation whenever you need it with the simple act of incorporating gratitude. And I really think that it should be part of your curriculum is gratitude. Because I remember one time when my nephew, he went to church and he was doing like a children's ministry at the church he was going to. And he's like, they had us make out this gratitude list and look at all these things I wrote down. And he didn't want to throw his piece of paper away. And he was so happy and so connected with it. And this was a very young boy who was sharing this with me, his excitement. I'm like, that is so cool. So there are so many ways that you can incorporate gratitude, but most importantly, start with yourself. And if there are places where you're feeling not that excited about, not that happy about, can you interject or inject some gratitude so that you give yourself a different experience, not necessarily by what's happening physically in your reality, but by the mindset that you're holding and what you're telling yourself about what's going on. And when you can hold that gratitude in your heart and really be able to express it in spite of the situations that are unfolding, your reality is going to totally shift. It is. It just is.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Mm.
Do you have a positive quote that we could give out to kind of round out today's kind of episode of gratitude?
Yeah. And I don't know if this one is directly related with gratitude, but let me see here. I actually, I'm like, oh, my daily planner has some quotes of the day, and I've got a wonderful Freedom Mastery. And let's see. Yeah, this is a good one. So this is by Charles Swindoll. And it says, life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it.
That's a great one.
So life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I choose to react to it. So I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's a great one too, to end our episode of gratitude and positivity. Have a wonderful holiday with your family. Stay safe. We will be back to you next week, but enjoy the long weekend.
Yes.
Some crazy Black Friday online shopping, and catch you all next week. Grateful for everything.
Grateful for y'all. Bye.
See ya.